Between 1989 and 1990, I killed 7 men. The newspapers called me America's first female serial killer. My name is Laura Brennan. I'm sitting on death row at the Broward Correctional Institution in Florida, and in about 3 weeks, they're going to kill me. Lethal injection. The families of the men I killed get to watch if they want to. Some probably will. Between 1989 and 1990, I killed 7 men. The newspapers called me America's first female serial killer, which isn't even true, but whatever sells papers, right? The prosecutors called me a predator, cold-blooded, said I lured innocent men to their deaths. Here's what nobody wanted to talk about in court. I was already broken. I'd been broken since I was 6 years old. That doesn't make what I did okay. I know that now, sitting here with nothing but time to think. But if you want to understand how someone becomes what I became, you need to know what was done to me first. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'll be dead soon, and that's probably justice. But maybe if someone reads this, they'll see the signs in some kid who's going through what I went through. Maybe they'll actually do something about it this time. I was born in Rochester, Michigan in February 1956. My mother left when I was 4 months old. Just walked out. I don't know where she went, and I stopped caring a long time ago. My father was in prison. I learned later it was for serious crimes, which explains a lot, actually. My grandparents took me in. Took me in makes it sound like charity. They hated me. My grandmother told me all the time that I was a mistake, that I was proof of my mother's sin. My grandfather was a drunk who became violent whenever he felt like it, which was often. The first time an adult crossed a line with me, it was a neighbor. Afterward, he gave me money, $5. I didn't fully understand what had happened, only the feeling that stayed with me. What I learned that day was simple and damaging. Adults could hurt you, and sometimes they treated that hurt like a transaction. That became my earliest understanding of how people relate to each other. By the time, the harm wasn't coming from just one person anymore. My grandfather knew. I'm sure he knew. He did nothing. I tried to tell my grandmother once, and she slapped me hard across the face, called me a liar, and said I was born bad, just like my mother. School was hell. I smelled bad. My clothes were dirty. I couldn't focus. The other kids called me names, and the teachers just looked sad but didn't do anything. I started failing classes, started skipping, started stealing my grandfather's alcohol. I was screaming for help in every way I knew how. I got in fights. I set fires in trash cans and abandoned buildings. I hurt animals sometimes. God, I'm so ashamed of that now. Every teacher, every counselor, every adult who saw me must have known something was wrong. Nobody did anything. One day, someone my family trusted took something from me that could never be given back, and my childhood ended overnight, and I became pregnant. They sent me away to a home for unwed mothers. I had the baby, a boy, and they took him immediately for adoption. I never held him, never even saw his face. The woman at the home told me I was lucky anyone would adopt a baby from trash like me. At 15, I ran away. I never went back. I survived the only way I knew how. Sex was the only currency I had. the only thing anyone had ever wanted from me. So I became a prostitute. Truck stops, highway rest areas, anywhere men went looking. For 15 years, I worked those highways. Michigan at first, then Florida. Hundreds of men. I stopped counting after a while. People think prostitution is just sex for money, like it's a simple transaction. It's not. It's violence. I was beaten, raped beyond what was agreed to, strangled, and thrown out of moving cars. One man burned me with cigarettes while he assaulted me. Another held a gun to my head the entire time. I never reported any of it. Who would care? Prostitutes aren't real victims to most cops. We're criminals. We're less than human. So you just survive the encounter, take the money if you can still get it, and move on. I drank. A lot. Did drugs when I could afford them. I had relationships with women sometimes. That was different, softer. There was actual tenderness there that I'd never felt with men. In 1986, I met Rose. She was young and sweet, and I fell in love with her so hard it scared me. She was the only person who'd ever been consistently kind to me. I wanted to give her a good life, but I couldn't do that on prostitution money. And I was so tired, so angry. 30 years of rage had built up inside me, and it had nowhere to go. Then, in November 1989, it finally had somewhere to go. He picked me up on a highway outside Clearview. Seemed normal enough. Middle-aged guy, polite, agreed to my rate. We drove to a secluded spot to do the transaction. That's when he pulled out handcuffs and a knife. He told me exactly what he was going to do to me. Told me he'd done it before to other girls like me. Said nobody gave a shit what happened to prostitutes anyway. That I'd probably end up dead in a ditch sooner or later. Something snapped. Not fear. I'd been afraid 1,000 times. This was rage. Pure fucking rage, and every man who'd ever hurt me, ever used me, ever thrown money at me like I was garbage. I had a gun in my bag, a pistol I'd started carrying after a bad encounter a few months back. I pulled it out, and I shot him. I kept shooting until he stopped moving. I felt powerful. For the first time in my entire life, I felt powerful. Not sexually powerful, not the fake power of getting money for sex. Real power. Physical power. The power to hurt back. I took his money, his watch, and his car keys. I drove away and left him bleeding out in the woods. For weeks, I waited to get caught. But nothing happened. They found the body, sure, but there were no leads, no witnesses. I was invisible, like I'd always been invisible. That's when I started thinking, if he deserved it, others do too. And I'd gotten away with it. Maybe I could get away with it again. Over the next 13 months, I killed 6 more men, 7 total. Some of them attacked me first, absolutely. Got violent, got rough, pulled weapons. Those ones I have no regrets about. That was self-defense, and I'd do it again. But the others? I don't know anymore. Some of them might have been innocent, just lonely guys looking for company. But I couldn't tell the difference anymore between a real threat and just another John. The rage had taken over. I'd flag them down on highways, negotiate, get in their cars, and have them drive somewhere isolated. Then I'd shoot them and take their money, their valuables, sometimes their cars, which I'd dump later. I needed the money. Rose and I were barely surviving. And in my head, I'd convinced myself I was doing something righteous. taking revenge on behalf of every woman who'd been used and thrown away. Rose knew something was wrong. I came home with blood on my clothes, with unexplained cash, and with injuries. I told her some of it, that I'd hurt men who tried to hurt me, that I was doing what I had to do. She was scared, but she was dependent on me. By late 1990, I'd killed 7 men, and their bodies were being found in wooded areas all over Central Florida. The cops knew they had a serial killer. They just didn't know it was a woman. I thought I was invisible. That was my mistake. Forensics don't care if you're invisible. They see you anyway. They found ballistics evidence first. All 7 men shot with the same .22 caliber gun. Similar locations, similar victim types. They formed a task force. Then they found the vehicles. I'd stolen 4 of them. 3 got recovered, and the cops processed them for fingerprints. My prints were all over them. See, I had a record. Prostitution arrests, disorderly conduct, DUI. My prints were in the system. They ran them through this new computer thing called AFIS, and boom, they had my name. But prints in a stolen car don't prove murder. So they started interviewing people at truck stops and rest areas. Multiple witnesses remembered seeing me. One truck stop attendant saw me getting into one of the victim's vehicles. Another witness saw me driving a dead man's car days after he went missing. Then there were the pawn shops. I'd pawn stuff belonging to the victims: cameras, jewelry, tools. Pawn shops keep records. My name was all over them, connected to property from murdered men. They put me under surveillance in late November 1990. Watched me work the highways, flagged down cars. Then they brought Rose in for questioning. She broke, told them everything. The confessions, the blood on my clothes, the stolen items. She was terrified of me, and she wanted out. They arrested me on January 9th, 1991, at a biker bar outside Daytona Beach. I was drunk and broke, and honestly, I'd known they were coming. When the cops walked in and called my name, I just put down my drink and held out my wrists. One of the detectives looked at me and said, "We know about all 7. We have your prints, your DNA, witnesses, and the stolen property. It's over." I started crying. Not because I was sorry. I wasn't. Not then. But because I knew my life was over. I confessed to all 7 during interrogation. Stupid. My lawyer told me not to talk, but I wanted to explain. I wanted them to understand what those men did to women like me, what had been done to me. My confessions contradicted each other. Sometimes I said it was pure self-defense. Other times, I admitted I shot guys who hadn't done anything wrong yet. I was withdrawing from alcohol, sleep-deprived, falling apart mentally. My public defender tried to use my abuse history as a defense, brought in psychologists who diagnosed me with all sorts of things: borderline personality disorder, PTSD, attachment disorder. They argued I'd been conditioned to see all men as threats. The prosecution said I was a cold-blooded killer who murdered for money, that I executed men and robbed their bodies, that I showed no remorse. The evidence was overwhelming. My fingerprints, the pawn shop records. Ballistics show the same gun killed everyone. Witnesses placed me with the victims before they died. Rose's testimony. My own confessions. The trial became a media circus. Female serial killer. Everyone was fascinated. They called me everything from a feminist avenger to a man-hating monster. The truth was more complicated, but complexity doesn't sell. During the trial, I had to watch the victims' families testify. That's when it really hit me what I'd done. These weren't all violent predators. Some were fathers, husbands, brothers. One was a grandfather driving home from work. Another was a young guy just starting his life. I'd killed innocent people. Not all of them, but some. Maybe most. I'd convinced myself I was getting revenge, but really, I was just spreading the violence that had been done to me. The jury convicted me on 6 counts of first-degree murder. One case didn't have enough evidence for first degree. The sentencing phase was brutal. A widow said, "She didn't just kill my husband. She killed our future, our retirement, and my children's father. She took him from us for money and called it justice." She was right. They were all right. The judge gave me 6 death sentences. I've been on death row for over a decade now, waiting. My execution date is set for next month. I'm 47. I'll die at 47, strapped to a gurney while the families of my victims watch through glass. I was broken before I was violent. That's not an excuse, it's just what happened. The abuse, the abandonment, the neglect, the decades of violence against me. It broke something inside me that couldn't be fixed. But being broken doesn't justify what I became. The cycle of violence is real. I was hurt, so I hurt others. But that cycle only continues if you let it. I let it. I chose to pass my pain forward instead of breaking the cycle. And innocent people died because of that choice. I think about the men I killed every day. Were some of them violent? Yes. Did all of them deserve to die? No, absolutely not. I became judge and executioner because I was angry and traumatized, and I wanted power in a life where I'd always been powerless. But power without accountability is just violence. I took revenge on the wrong people and destroyed families who had nothing to do with my trauma. The investigation that caught me was good police work plus technology. My fingerprints that I left carelessly because I thought nobody cared about dead Johns. Pawn shop records because I needed money. Witnesses I never considered because I thought I was invisible. Rose testified against me to save herself. I don't blame her. She was a victim of my violence too, psychologically coerced into complicity. She did a short sentence and got out. I hope she's okay now. I'm a case study now, apparently. They teach about me in criminal justice classes. Childhood sexual abuse survivor, abandonment issues, history of victimization leading to perpetration, displaced rage. All the clinical terms for what happens when every system fails a child. But I'm also a case study in choice. Other people went through similar trauma and didn't become killers. Other prostitutes worked the same highways and didn't murder their clients. My trauma explained my pain, but it didn't excuse my violence. If anyone learns anything from my case, let it be this. Watch for kids being abused. Report it. Intervene. One caring adult who believed me, who protected me, who gave me a way out. Maybe I wouldn't be here. Child abuse creates criminals and addicts, and broken adults. Prevention starts with protecting children. Prostitutes are people. When we're victimized, investigate. When we're murdered, care. The first few men I killed might have been the last if violence against sex workers had been taken seriously. If you're a survivor of trauma, get help. Process your rage in therapy, not on other people. The cycle ends when someone chooses to break it. I didn't break it. I just passed it on. And for what it's worth, context matters, but it doesn't erase accountability. My death sentence is probably just, given what I did. But understand that criminals are often victims first. That doesn't mean no punishment. It means punishment with understanding. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I took 7 lives and destroyed multiple families. My execution is just. But before I die, I want people to understand that serial killers aren't born. They're created. I was created by systematic abuse, by neglect, by violence, by a society that saw a victimized child and looked away. Then I created more victims because I couldn't break the cycle. My name is Laura Brennan. I was broken before I was violent. In a few weeks, the state of Florida will end my broken, violent life. The families of my victims will have their closure. I'll have whatever comes after this. And maybe somewhere, a child who's being hurt right now will be saved because someone learned from my case that ignoring abuse creates monsters. That's my only hope for redemption.